All right, strap in, folks, because today we're diving headfirst into a tech showdown that has sent shockwaves through the entire industry, WP Engine versus Automattic.
And this isn't just some esoteric tech squabble, oh no. This gets to the core of a question that's been simmering for years. Can you really have these idealistic open source communities trying to coexist with billion-dollar corporations, especially when those corporations are built on the very foundation of that supposed openness?
Yeah, and it's a question that's front and center in the world of WordPress. We all know how massive WordPress is. I mean, think about it. Over 43% of all websites out there are powered by it.
Exactly, which is why this whole legal battle could completely change the game.
So let's lay the groundwork here. First up, we have WP Engine.
Right. They've built a really successful business around providing services to all those WordPress users out there.
Hosting, support, all the bells and whistles, right?
Exactly. And they've been around for a while now, since 2010.
Over 1.5 million websites depend on them, so they're not a small fry.
And a key part of this story is that they've always been big on contributing back to the WordPress community, too. Sponsoring WordCamps, developing open source projects, you name it, they've probably done it.
So they're deeply embedded in this world, which is what makes this whole legal battle even juicier, right?
Oh, absolutely. Because on the other side of the ring, we have Automattic.
Founded by none other than Matt Mullenweg, the guy behind WordPress itself. Talk about an awkward office party, right?
Right. But it's the difference in their business models that makes things really interesting, you know. WP Engine is all about those services that support WordPress users. Automattic, on the other hand, they operate from within the open source space itself. They're not just serving the WordPress community, they're part of it.
So you have WordPress.com, their hosting platform.
WooCommerce, their e-commerce plugin. Two very different approaches, but both operating under that same WordPress umbrella.
And that umbrella, well, let's just say it sprung a leak last September. WP Engine claims Automattic, out of the blue, basically said, show me the money.
Yeah, tens of millions in licensing fees, or else.
Whoa, what were they supposed to be licensing?
Well, Automattic's argument hinges on WP Engine's use of trademarks like WordPress and WooCommerce.
But WP Engine claims they were just using those terms to talk about the software their clients were already using. I mean, isn't that pretty standard practice?
Totally. It's like saying, hey, we can jazz up your WordPress website. Seems pretty normal to me.
Okay.
But Automattic is singing a different tune here. They're saying, hold on a sec, those are our trademarks you're tossing around.
So what's WP Engine's defense?
They're basically saying, look, this is just nominative fair use.
Nominative what now?
Right. It's a legal principle that basically means you can use a trademark if you're referring to the trademark thing itself.
Okay, give me an example.
Sure. Imagine searching for cheap flights on Google Flights. You're using their trademark, right? But you're obviously referring to the actual service they provide, not claiming to be Google Flights.
Okay, that makes sense. But from what I've heard, this situation goes way beyond a standard cease and desist letter.
Oh, you heard right. WP Engine claims that Mullenweg took things up a notch, got really aggressive in emails and texts to their CEO, and even a board member.
Aggressive how?
We're talking threats of going nuclear on them, publicly smearing them if they didn't meet his demands. Intense stuff.
That's not exactly playing nice in the sandbox. This whole thing really makes you think about all the different hats Mullenweg wears in the WordPress world. He's the director of the WordPress Foundation. He owns WordPress.org. And, oh yeah, he's the CEO of Automattic, which, hello, directly competes with WP Engine.
Talk about a tangled web. Makes you wonder if there could be a conflict of interest there.
You think. And keep in mind, this all happened right before Mullenweg was scheduled to give a keynote speech at WordCamp US. Talk about high stakes. And that WordCamp keynote, well, that's where things really blew up. WP Engine says Mullenweg used that entire event, that platform, to basically tell people to drop WP Engine like a hot potato.
Ouch. Talk about adding insult to injury, right?
Yeah.
And with impeccable timing. But it gets worse, because WP Engine alleges that Mullenweg didn't stop there. They claim he used his power to actively sabotage them.
Wait, sabotage? What could he actually do?
Remember, Mullenweg controls WordPress.org, right? It's supposed to be this central hub, all about community and open access.
Neutral ground and all that.
Right, exactly. But WP Engine claims Mullenweg used that control against them, basically blocked them and even their customers from accessing certain areas of the website.
Hold on, seriously. I thought WordPress.org was supposed to be this untouchable, community-driven space.
You would think, right. But that's the irony here. WP Engine claims he used that power, that control, to hurt them.
But how? By blocking them, how would that even hurt them?
Well, think about it. Hindering their ability to update plugins, potentially impacting millions of websites.
Okay, but plugin updates, that's just about, what, new features and stuff, right?
That's part of it, sure, but it goes way beyond that. They're
Yeah.
crucial for security, for making sure websites are running smoothly. Imagine being a WP Engine customer stuck in the middle of this whole mess. Not a good look.
I bet social media was lighting up like a Christmas tree. People love to gossip, especially when it's tech drama.
Oh, absolutely. It was a field day. And WP Engine points to a ton of examples, like frustrated customers posting online, freaking out. Some even talked about switching providers because of all the uncertainty and potential harm to their websites.
So we're talking about more than just hurt feelings here. There was real financial risk for both WP Engine and, like you said, their customers.
Oh, 100%. And this is where things go from bad to worse. Because this wasn't just about two companies duking it out anymore. It really struck a nerve within the entire open source community.
Because suddenly, those big idealistic principles that open source is supposed to stand for, like collaboration and sharing.
Exactly. It's like, what happened to all that? This whole situation really brought up questions about who really has the power in these communities.
Right, like if someone like Mullenweg can allegedly throw his weight around and use his influence for, well, let's just say less than noble purposes, then what does that say about the future of open source software?
Yeah. Can it truly be open when this much power rests in the hands of just a few people at the top?
Right. It's a question that's been bubbling under the surface for a while now, and this whole WP Engine situation just brought it to a rolling boil.
And it makes sense, right? Like, any company that's thinking about building their business on an open source platform has got to be having second thoughts now.
It's like, what's the point of building something incredible on a platform like WordPress if you're always at risk of being pushed around or forced to share the profits?
It's this chilling effect that everyone's worried about. And it could stifle innovation across the board, especially if developers are afraid to contribute because they're afraid of, well, this.
So that brings us to the million-dollar question. Can this idealistic vision of open source, of sharing and collaboration, can it really survive in a world dominated by big businesses?
Right. That's the crux of it.
Yeah.
And to really understand what's at stake here, we need to look at the bigger picture, the long-term consequences for both WordPress and the entire open source movement.
So where does this whole debacle leave WordPress? I mean, they've been king of the hill for years, but could this whole thing put a dent in their armor?
It's definitely got people talking. This whole situation has really exposed a potential weakness at the heart of the WordPress ecosystem, this lack of a clear, set of rules, a lack of governance.
Right, like who's really in charge here?
Exactly. Developers and even everyday users, they might start looking at other platforms, alternatives that seem a bit more, stable, a little less prone to these internal power struggles.
Especially if they're worried about, putting all their eggs in the WordPress basket, only to have someone come along and pull the rug out from under them with some trademark dispute.
That's the fear. And it's bigger than just picking a website platform. It really gets to the heart of open source software as a whole. Can this ideal, this vision of shared innovation, can it really survive when you have these massive companies calling the shots?
So how do we even begin to fix this? How do we prevent these kinds of showdowns from happening again? Can we protect that open source spirit, that ethos, but also acknowledge the reality, the power of these big companies?
That's the million-dollar question. Some people are saying that we need stronger governance for open source communities, like a kind of constitution for the internet,
A constitution for the internet, I like that. But seriously, what would that even look like?
Well, it would lay down the ground rules, safeguard those core principles of openness and collaboration, but also create a system for resolving these kinds of disputes fairly.
Makes sense. Because right now it feels like it all comes down to the goodwill of a few powerful people, and that's just, I don't know, it just feels shaky, not sustainable in the long run, especially with something as big and important as open source software.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. This whole WP Engine situation has sparked a conversation that's been a long time coming, a conversation about power, about who's really in control and what the future holds for open source. It's something that everyone who uses, develops, or does business in this world needs to be thinking about.
Well, folks, there you have it. We've taken a deep dive into one of the most important showdowns in tech today. We've looked at how this whole legal battle got started, who the key players are and what they're fighting for, and the huge ripple effects this could have on open source software.
And like any good deep dive, we're left with more questions than answers, right?
Right. So here's something for you to ponder as you go about your day. What does it really mean for something to be open in this digital age? And how do we make sure that the core principles of open source collaboration, sharing, and working together, how do we make sure those values stay at the very heart of innovation? Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.